I'm sorry, you have what?
I think she said she had bad reception here.
All right, we'll do our best.
Okay.
Like I said, if somehow I miss you, call in for Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown?
Oh, let's call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Dr. Hall?
Here, or present, here.
Mrs. Root? Here.
Whoa.
Mr. Sawalish?
Here.
Mrs. Walters?
Here.
Mrs. Galbraith is here. Mr. Albrecht?
Here. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Roop, would you please read our mission statement?
Of course. Our mission statement is to ensure that every child is challenged to reach his or her full potential academically, socially, and emotionally as they grow and develop into thoughtful, productive, and contributing members of society.
Thank you. Terry, is there any public comment? No, sir. Okay. Superintendent update.
Oh, I've just got a few little highlights to finish our first academic year here. We certainly were very excited and had a very successful year. So much to be proud of. At the end of the year, we had our middle school 8th grade boys track and field won state. Our high school boys track won 3A IHSA state champs. And last month, we recognized Lanika Vance for winning the state champ for long jump. We also had Special Olympics, June 7th and 8th, where we had 6 gold, 2 silver, 3 bronze, 1 4th place, 1 5th place, 2 6th place, and 1 participation. Currently, we have summer school going on. It has already started at the high school and middle school, and next week we will be starting it at the elementary. Many of our staff has already gone back to work on professional development activities. We have gifted seminar, coding, technology integration, and a lot of curriculum work. So our teachers are already back working this summer. We're excited. We will be finalizing the strategic plan in August. The process has finished. We are tweaking some of the language, and we will be presenting it to the board at our August 20th meeting. As for right now, we want to make sure we wish everyone a great summer.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is consent agenda approval. What I'd like to have, the order I'd like to follow tonight is to have Dr. Coglani's read the items on the agenda. We'll then have discussion followed by motion. So Dr. Coglani's.
All right, item A, number 1, is the regular meeting minutes of May 21st, 2019, special meeting minutes of June 11th, 2019, Committee of the Whole meeting minutes of June 19th, 2019, and Committee of the Whole closed session minutes of June 11th, 2019. Item B, District Affairs, number 1, is approve the resolution of Board Policy 753, was establishment of Connecticut Schematic School. And C, Business would be item 1, approve accounts payable agenda of bills. Item 2, approve payroll. Item 3, approve treasurer's report.
Thank you. Is there any discussion or questions?
Yeah, I have a question. I know we talked about it in depth. The one Coretta Scott King, 7:53.
Yes.
I know the intent of it, but if Dr. Clark could just reread that and just seemed like it wasn't real clear I know the intent, but could you read the change in that particular policy?
So in our discussion and in the committee of the whole meeting, we discussed on those rare occasions where we may have an accelerated student at Coretta Scott King that may need to be placed in a higher grade level. So for instance, a third grader being accelerated to fifth. So the language that was developed was to accommodate that. So I need to take you back about a year when we had to also address retention. And that's the piece that you are seeing. So we have to stay consistent in the policy. So in those rare occasions, you may have a retention or an acceleration at CSK. So in that piece, that language reads, the superintendent or designee may request from the board to consider placing the student in the retained or accelerated grade level in an attempt to maintain educational consistency. Available community slots will not be a factor.
Yes, she
Okay.
is.
Available community slots will not be a factor in the decision and may result in class sizes exceeding 25.
Okay, yeah, okay, so the part that I just kind of hit a pause at when it says board to consider placing the student in the retained or accelerated grade level. So placing, so it's not specific because we don't know
That is
at what
correct.
point. So that's the intent, because it's not specific, it's general in nature
Right, and it doesn't
on
happen often.
both sides of the fence.
Yes, it doesn't happen often, but when it happens, we will have to bring that situation to you on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, so it would ultimately be the board decision.
This is the board policy, yes.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions on the consent agenda?
I don't know. I couldn't hear what Mr. Brown asked. But I had a question about the wording for CSK. I think I understand what we're trying to say, basically that the school board, if there's a need, that the superintendent will bring it back to the board and the board will decide. And this is saying that the class sizes may go over 25.
She's
Is that
asking,
correct?
she's asking for clarification that the board policy states that it will go through the superintendent and that the fact that the class sizes may go over 25 in that case. Yes, but the board has to approve it.
Okay, I don't think that's clear in that. I think we need to put with board approval in that, and then also the next sentence, however, the student may be placed on the waiting list and can re-enter the school through the waiting list process. I don't think there's continuity there with the previous sentence.
She thinks the board policy is not clear enough in stating that.
That the board will approve, it's subject to board approval.
Subject to board approval. Where would you like us to add subject to board approval in that document?
This has to not be, and just basically any increase after the number 25, any increase in class size is subject to board approval.
Got it.
But then that last sentence, because the one before that is a however, and then the last one is a however, I'm not sure that there's continuity there. Is that making sense still?
Yes, what would you like to have included in there?
No, I'm saying the part in red says, however, the superintendent or designee may request blah, 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 blah. And then the next sentence says, however, the student may be placed on the waiting list. Do we need two howevers? I'm not understanding, because the last sentence was there previously prior to the change.
And yeah, the red is the only change.
Yes, the red is the only change. And the reason that we are trying to blend that, Dr. Hall, is because regardless of the outcome, if it is decided that that student may or may not be placed or retained, They go back on that waiting list to get an opportunity to come back to CSK.
Yeah, I just think because you have a however in the sentence before, just take out the however.
Take up the however.
Done.
Okay, we can do that.
You know,
Okay.
and I think you already have, I think we already have in the policy that if a student was to be retained or leave the community, they may have to go to the bottom of the waiting list.
This particular policy is strictly for CSK.
Right. That's what I'm saying. In here, I read
Right.
it in here, but I didn't want to go back because that wasn't changed.
They have to come back and go on the waiting list. Yes.
They move out the district or retain. Right?
So
It said, if they move out the district.
they go on the waiting list.
Or if they're retained, why, again, I didn't want to, start, that's a whole nother conversation.
That's a
I
whole
only
nother.
want to stick with this, but it almost sounds like this is somewhat redundant a little bit here because it says it earlier in the same policy that if a student was to be retained or move out the district, they may go to the bottom of the list. the
If
waiting
a
list.
student leaves the district, they have an opportunity to reapply for CSK. Am I correct, Laura?
That leaving the district, I can get that, but it
Yes.
says also retain, and it says it was either, it was both, it gave two scenarios. It said retain or leave the district. So you can be in the district, retain, and you retain, was retained for whatever reason. You go to the bottom of the
Meaning
list.
Retained in the same grade.
Right,
From CSK?
right, and you go to the bottom of the list when it comes to what?
No.
Going to that grade,
No, no. I
going to the
think
next
you-
level?
No,
What
I
would they
think
go
we're
to?
confusing two different things. What we're saying is for this policy only, that if that student has been retained or, and we're only talking about CSK.
Right.
If a student has been retained or accelerated, those incidences will come to the Board of Education who will make a decision on placement.
Right, that's what we made the change here.
And that's all this discusses.
Right, but earlier in this particular policy, it says something about if a student was retained, that student may go to the bottom of the list, to go to the next
We
level.
changed that a little while ago to be consistent. That's why what's in red is a reflection of that first bullet above it. That was updated to include retention and accelerated. So we're saying the same thing.
Okay. No, that's about retaining. Retaining. Mhm.
Right, so when you're talking about
That's-
goes on the
that's-
waiting list,
that's
where on
it.
the waiting list do they go
Yeah,
in this
that's the one I'm
section that we're
talking
talking about?
Janine found the one I was looking at.
Yeah, because it is above there. That's why I'm asking, where on the waiting list do they go?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
it's the same
Give me
policy.
one moment. Do you understand what I just said, Mr. Brown?
I understand what the changes were that you brought to the table today.
Okay,
However, in the same policy.
Correct.
There's some verbiage, and it seems somewhat redundant, that I was reading earlier today or yesterday.
mhm.
And Janine, could you read? Yeah, I understand the changes
It's a couple
now.
bullet points up from the one we're on. It says, if a student on the waiting list is
It's under application and admission procedures.
removed to another community, that student will be placed at the end of the waiting list for the new grade level or community.
But that's a student on the waiting list, not already a student.
Right. That's why we're talking about two different things.
Mhm.
Okay,
This, doesn't sound like my mic's working, but this section is for reasons for removal from the school. The bullet that Mrs. Galbraith just read is not about removal from the school. It's about just what happens generally with students. So this is specific to retention. So the history of it is we first put the language in regarding retention. And if you look at the words here, the black font here was originally just retention. And then last year, when we had the Acceleration Act that came into play, we added the phrase, the language about acceleration. And so now what we've added to this is just that now if, it used to be that they would, if they were retained or accelerated and we couldn't accommodate them because there was no community slot, they automatically were transferred back to their home school. And they could go back to CSK, but only through returning to the waiting list. That was the only mechanism for them to get back in either the retained grade or the accelerated grade. And now what we're saying here is, rather than just saying that they're going back to the home school, we will bring it to the board to say we have a circumstance here. And the board then makes the decision on whether to accelerate or not, retain or not, homeschool or not, CSK or not.
25 number or not.
If it's homeschool, they can then reapply and go back on the waiting list.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So in the last sentence of the bullet point or paragraph that's being altered, are we taking out the word however?
I'm going to reread it for you now.
Okay.
So the new language will read, however, the superintendent or designee may request from the board to consider placing the student in the retained or accelerated grade level in an attempt to maintain educational consistency. Available community slots will not be a factor in decision and may result in a class size exceeding 25. Any increase in class size is subject to board approval. The student may be placed on a waiting list and can re-enter the school through the waiting list process.
So we added another sentence. Okay.
So the last sentence is the case should the board not approve, correct?
It's the background that I'm not getting.
Yeah, I agree. You have to qualify that. So if the board does not approve, comma, the student may be placed on the waiting list
Right.
and can re-enter. It needs to be
If the board
qualified because it would be in that situation
Yes.
that,
If there is not board approval.
Mhm.
Or
the board does-
absent board approval.
Yeah, any of those.
Something like that, I think should be clarified.
Board approval is
If the board does not approve,
How about instead of take out the word however and just say
Right.
absent board approval?
absent.
Absent board approval. So if we don't approve above, absent board approval.
Absent of board
the student may be
approval.
placed on the waiting list and can re-enter.
got it, the student will be placed on the wait list. Got it. Okay. So the final sentence will read, absent of board approval, the student will be placed on the waiting list and can re-enter the school through the waiting list process.
Okay.
I think that's very clunky. I don't think the public's going to understand what absent of board approval means, so I'm just putting that out there.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't like that wording. I don't think that the public reading this is going to understand, because I didn't get it at first. So.
I will
that's-
write it
that's a
however the
choice
board
can vote on,
wishes.
but I don't like it.
Okay,
I mean, if the board does not approve.
Okay.
We put
The
that,
enrollment,
we can put that in.
got it. That's how it would read. If the board does not approve, that's how it will begin.
Okay.
Are those changes that I've just read acceptable to the board?
Yes. So,
Yes.
okay. Is there any other discussion? Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with changes subject to the, to revisions to board policy 7:53 as discussed?
So moved.
And now, but you have to repeat what the discussion, no, I'm just kidding.
Second,
Actually, the wording should be reread that we rewrote.
That's what
We
the-
just learned that the other day, that we should really make it clear in the motion what we're doing. So I think we should reread that wording, please.
Okay,
Sorry.
that's okay.
Yes. So
That's okay. However,
we have
the
the second reading of the change prior to the vote.
Okay. However, the superintendent or designee may request from the board to consider placing the student in the retained or accelerated grade level in an attempt to maintain educational consistency. Available community slots will not be a factor in the decision and may result in class sizes exceeding 25. Any increase in class size is subject to board approval. If the board does not approve, the student will be placed on the waiting list and can re-enter the school through the waiting list process.
Okay,
Okay.
Maybe, right?
Maybe,
Maybe,
yes.
Yes.
okay. We have a motion and a second.
Who made a motion?
Mr. Board
Mr.
Member Swalish,
Sawalish and Mrs. Root.
second. Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Mrs. Root?
Aye.
Mr. Sawalish?
Aye.
Mrs. Walters?
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith is an aye. Mr. Albrecht?
Aye. Motion carries. So move on to action reports. Human resources, number one, would you please read the personnel report?
Yes, sir. The personnel report reads as follows. For certified staff employment, Amy Correa, Daniel Casey, Kathleen Daly, Jennifer Engman, Marina Finelli, and Timothy Hall. Certified staff leave of absence, Carly Bernard, Catherine Burnham, Rebecca Johnson, Melissa Westerberg. Certified staff resignation, Tiffany Alexander, Keenan Keller, Malik Temple, and Victoria McAndrew. Certified staff reassignment, Kathy Seifert, Janice Van Kyken. Certified staff return from leave of absence, Kayla Anderson, Tracy Orris, Ashley Stashniak, and Samantha Zakowitz. And certified staff intent to retire, Linda Greenwood. Educational support staff employment, Theodore Bartnick, Michael Campbell, Tony Carroll, Sharon Daniels, Elizabeth Chamillo, and Nikki Thomas. Certified staff reassignments, Sandy Carvajal, Janet Despain, Margene Fisher, Crystal Goff, Jennifer Hayton, Janice Johnson, Kenise Kissy, Richard Ray, Maria Cerna, Annette Sullivan, and Lena Zish. Certified staff intent to retire, Deborah Jones. Certified staff recalled from reduction in force, Justin Anderson, Susie Anderson, Stephanie Bowen, Deborah Curtis, Adriana Escovel, Robert Gardner, Amy Gilliam, Sandra Godar, Antoinette Green, Darian Griffin, Jill Langen, Taryn Millender, Angel Misters, Deborah Nicki, Silver Smith, Tracy Wagner, and Yolanda Woods. Certified staff resignations, Lola Cole, Katrina Lang, Patrice Lewis, Janice Nelson, Jessica O'Young, Dwayne Price, and Yolanda Wozni. And that ends the personnel report.
Are there any questions or discussion on the personnel report?
I believe that at least one of these positions, if not more, are being paid by a grant. Can you please tell us which ones those are and how that works so the public understands, please?
The two positions, I believe there's two. One is the, it's under reassignments. It's our technology integration coach, which I believe is being paid through a title grant. And then we also have a technology integration specialist also being paid through a title grant. And I don't believe there were any others on this report from
Okay,
title.
are those grants for 1 year, or will that carry the position for 3 years, or do we know?
I mean, the intent is that it would carry over from year to year. Obviously, you know, we don't control the amount of the grants, but they have been fairly consistent historically.
Are there any other questions or discussion on the personnel report?
Real quick, Lyle, the two reports you send, one is for the board and the other one is the same report, but one shows the salary and one does not, right?
Correct.
Okay, I thought it was just my phone that was active. It has always been that way, right?
Yes, it has.
Okay. All righty. Just thought I was seeing things. Thank you.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the personnel report?
You don't have your mic on? It's not on. Okay.
Moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Swalish.
Okay.
All right, second.
Okay, before you take the roll, vote, one more quick question. We have an administrative position here that's replacing another administrator. Do we not have the contract? So we're here to vote on that person, new position, without saying the contract. Why is that?
Well, we haven't put the contract in. Typically, what's put in is the salary. The contract is the same terms as all other principals. I'm certainly happy to include the contracts in the future, but we haven't been doing that.
So this is a promotion for that person?
Yes.
All right,
Okay.
so we haven't done that before, right?
At least not
With the-
since
with the
I've been in this
contract.
position. I don't believe we have been putting the specific contract in board book, for instance. The contract is in the folder for signature,
Okay.
and it's the principal benefits package. It's virtually the same thing that the individual has now, except they're going to a 12-month contract.
Okay. I'm going to ask a similar question as we go further into this meeting too. Okay, go ahead. You can take the roll call.
Roll call, please.
Dr. Hall?
Present.
I'm sorry, what'd she say? Present. Mrs. Roop?
Aye.
Mr. Sawalish?
Aye.
Mrs. Walters? Mr. Brown?
Abstain.
Mrs. Galbraith is a aye. Mr. Albrecht?
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, next up on Human Resources, A2, approve administrator dean contracts.
Yes, this has been discussed several times. However, this is an action to approve the final administrative contracts for 2019-2020. This would involve our 4 administrative deans at the high school, and the primary changes for them will be that they will be receiving administrative insurance, and that they will be giving up a 10-day per diem in lieu of an 11-month contract. So they will go from 10 to 11 months, and they will give up a 10-day per diem, and they will add their administrative benefits in.
Okay. Are there any questions or discussion?
Yeah, again,
I have,
go ahead, Doc.
so my issue is, we spoke about this in committee of the whole, but at that meeting, after that meeting, I did share with Dr. Monee. I think that we need to have more documentation in our package when we're approving things. This is a change only basically giving them administrative benefits. However, I believe the board needs to understand what that language is. And so this information should have been provided. There was not a listing of the dean contract in the packet. And considering even now with some misunderstandings about what's in our administrative contracts, we need to be seeing these items when we're approving them. I don't feel comfortable approving something where the board has not seen the official and final language. So I'm requesting moving forward that when we do these things, if we're bringing contracts, I don't care if it's just a change to the contract, the board should be aware of that language, and I have nothing to look at.
Okay, any other discussion items?
I believe Dr. Hall may have alluded to what concern I had as far as we're here to approve this dean contracts, but yet, yeah, we did talk about it in depth and pretty good details, but yet we do not have the document as a final document to be approved tonight. So moving forward, I would highly recommend that we are supplying the necessary documents.
And just as a side note, I'm providing what has been provided. If that is ever a request that needs to change, all it needs is is to be communicated, and I'll be happy to provide whatever the board is requesting. I do not ever intend to withhold anything. And that certainly wasn't the intent here. I just continued the process as we have in the past.
Moving forward, we will have
Yeah, I mean,
contracts in these reports for you to view.
just look at it, from a very high level. It's saying you bring us.
File is not specific to you. I remember that email when we were asked about approving before and after school programming and did not have the documentation of beforehand. So it's just a general practice.
Just a general statement.
The president and the secretary see the contract prior to the board meeting.
So she was saying that just in general, she'd like to see more documentation. She was using the before and after school program as an example. So she's just suggesting that we have documentation for moving forward.
Well, as I said, anything that is requested, I will always provide.
If the board president and the secretary see the contract prior to the board meeting.
No, we do not.
No, I did not, Dr. Hall. I was satisfied with the detail that was provided at the committee of the whole.
The reason I asked is prior, when I was president, that was requested, but maybe it was changed under new leadership. Because of the president and previous secretary who wanted the opportunity to read over things before we just signed them. So that's why I was asking for clarification that their process wasn't quick. So apparently it's not.
We can put that back in.
Just so you know, I do check every contract as best as I can. I don't just rubber stamp them, just so you know. But do I read them every word? I do not, Dr. Hall. You're absolutely right. So that's a very good suggestion. Thank you.
Yeah, that's one of the core responsibility as a board member, to be good financial steward, fiscal responsible. So again, on the surface, you're bringing to us tonight a point, that's what I call it, a point that states to approve an administrator contract. Where is the contract?
Okay, so noted.
I just think that should have probably been made clear to the night of committee of the whole. We did discuss this, so if that was something we needed to see, I think it probably should have been. We can't expect them to have it tonight if we requested. So I guess from now on, we should make sure that that's the stuff that we ask for so that he can have it and be prepared.
I think we have been seeing the contracts previous, though. We have been seeing, if they're new contracts or changed, we do normally get them in the board packet, I believe. We don't get the final until it's signed tonight, but we do get what's going on. I think that's what we're saying, is we need to see that even earlier.
Well, I mean, I understand that, but
Yeah.
I guess it wasn't clear.
Yeah.
So
Well, and in the
that was
past-
my thing. I think we just have to make things clear, because then we can handle that in
We
the
can
committee
get
of
it
the whole and
done.
not have to bring it
Absolutely.
here, is what I'm saying.
There
We
was
could
a
have-
lot of not clear.
I think we just have to make clarity. I'm not agreeing with it. I'm just saying we need to make clarity so that then that was knowing what to bring, so.
Yeah, and as in the past, the contracts were provided for signature and they were given to Terry. I know in the past, the officers who were signing them may have received them ahead of time. I don't know what happened to them once they went out of my hands to her. And certainly I would get questions following that, so they obviously had retrieved them. Whether that was they picked them up or they were delivered to them, I don't know. Certainly, like I said, whatever direction, the board wants us to go, we will go, and, we'll follow a procedure unless we're asked to change it. And so that's if that's being requested, that absolutely will occur from this point forward.
Okay.
I couldn't hear Lyle all the way, but it's always good to have another set of eyes looking at the contracts. As Lyle knows, I caught a couple of issues myself before just looking at the contracts. So I think that's another layer to it. We need to make sure that what we're signing is what is being agreed upon and there's no mistakes. And the reminder ones and major ones previously.
She's
So
saying just to have
that's
another pair of
another
eyes
reason
on
why.
it.
And you're right,
Oh.
Dr. Hall. I've caught a couple of things also and not signed them until we got a clarification or a correction on it. So you're right. Another set of eyes absolutely at times can help.
Okay, so noted, all good recommendations. Let's move forward. Can I have a motion to approve the administrator dean contracts.
Moved.
Second.
Is that you, Sandy?
No.
It was Ruth.
Michelle.
I can't tell from the side. Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Root,
Aye.
Mr. Sawalish,
Aye.
Mrs. Walters,
Aye.
Mr. Brown,
Present.
Dr. Hall,
Because I have not seen him, I abstain from the vote.
what did you say?
She abstained from the vote because she didn't see the contract.
Mrs. Galbraith is an aye. Mr. Albrecht?
Aye. Motion carries. So, Lyle, I'd like to turn it over to you to make an introduction.
Absolutely. During tonight's personnel report, we did approve a new principal for Balmoral Elementary. So if we could ask Janice Van Kuiken to come forward and congratulate her on her new position.
Good evening, everybody. Just wanted to do a quick introduction of myself. So I'm Janice Van Kuiken. I'm your new principal for Balmoral Elementary, and that's a pretty fantastic thing to stand here and tell you. 16 years ago, I started my career at Balmoral, fresh out of college, and so I truly am a homegrown leader here from Crete, Monee. I stand before you because of everybody I've met in this district, the staff, the scholars, the families, and I am truly humbled and honored to be able to continue my service with you. And I look forward to many more years here. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Do we have any old business?
I kind of have a crossover from old to new. A while back, in fact, when I first came on the board 4.5 years ago, not long after, we started talking about the board getting their own laptop or personal computer or something and a district phone. I believe we started to look at prices, and somewhere along the line, the conversation got dropped, and it has come up a couple of times just at random meetings. And I think that we need to discuss the board having district property instead of using their personal property.
Do you have specific concerns for the change or?
Well, I have to maintain a personal computer in order to do district business, which means I have to service it. I have to pay for anything that goes wrong with that computer. I have to use my private phone, that's minutes on it, that's wear and tear on it. So those are things we're not reimbursed for. And we're expected to be able to answer emails, texts, whatever. I know there are employees who don't need a computer for their job, but they have a computer in case they want to check email from the district. But they don't use their computer in the job. We use a computer, a laptop, iPad, something all the time, and we use our phones. So I think it's something that needs to be looked at. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, my concern would be more, less the financial impact on us and more just if our phones ever needed to be taken to, for FOIAs, or if there was ever any reason why they would have to check all our emails. At all the trainings we've been to, they've been talking about how, you could have your text FOIA'd or anything that you're using, doing any business on, even if it's your personal device. So that would be more my concern.
Dr. Kara, could the administration maybe put together a proposal for the board to consider?
We certainly can, and we can present that at committee of the whole.
I do know that Mr. Brunner was in on part of that, scouting out different personal computers when we were actually doing it. So I don't know if he has any of that information left, but he was one of the people that was kind enough to start doing some legwork on it originally.
Oh, we can update that.
So I don't know what they were looking at, something the size of what Rochelle has in front of her. And if I recall, it was not very expensive at all, what they were looking at so far as the laptop, iPad, whatever it was they were actually looking at. So
Okay, we will have that ready for committee of the whole next month.
thank you.
Okay, I have an old business item. I would, Dr. Kara, if you could, I know we've talked about this in the past, but maybe the next committee of the whole have a discussion item to talk about the Good News Report, kind of what the various board members' thoughts on that, and before we get to the coming school year, if we want to continue that practice or not, and in what form. So,
Okay, we'll have that on as well.
any other old business?
On the old business item, really for Janine, who inquired about IASB, no longer accepting NSBA points. I was able to get a response on that. It's basically because of the system that they've now gone to, where it's automatic report instead of self-report. And because there's no way for them to automatically get reports from NSBA, that's why that's no longer included. I want to make sure that I got you that.
Thank you, Dr. Hall. I guess I have to accept that. That is the way it is. It's really too bad, though, because we take so many NSBA courses, but I totally understand why they can't do it. So thank you for finding somebody to get you an answer on that.
You're welcome.
Is there any other old business? Any new business?
I believe this is new business. It has been shared with us as far as questions being asked to our superintendent, and it was in those questions, I believe, were in the superintendent's FYI. But this issue with new business is regarding the use of the track at the high school track facilities. I'm not going to get into all the details, but I've had numerous phone calls and emails regarding the use of the track, how it's been utilized, so on and so forth. So I did go over there today right before this meeting, and I got my 2 miles in. I just want to let you know, so that's why I'm exhausted. But I noticed a sign on the fence, and the sign says this: "This is not a public playground. It is school district property. Its use is reserved for authorized persons. Violators or trespassers will be prosecuted by order of Board of Education." So I don't know if that's a hidden in a policy or what. Again, I don't want to get into it. Dr. Connolly's has been very kind to answer my questions to the best of her knowledge, and she still has some questions and to get
Yes,
answered from me.
since that item came in for board members as a complaint or a question, I am addressing that in my Q&A log this week.
Okay.
And we will continue to address it. I've been working with Mr. Surma on that as well as Mr. McLean.
Okay.
So I will have more details for you.
Thank you. Just wanted to bring it to the full board attention.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Any other new business items?
I have a new business item. Dr. Connolly, I saw your update regarding conversation about possibly removing Kalala School from our district. I want the board to know I'm very well aware of this. This conversation has been going on for a couple of months now. I think that we need to be very cautious in any conversations that we're having regarding facilities, especially removing a school from our district. So my understanding is this is a movement by new leadership in Park Forest, and they're trying to garner support for this movement. And also it's being said that there's support from board members on all affected school districts. And I've been told that there's board members on Monee district that have expressed their support for this endeavor. I think we need to remember the main issue with the facility plan of not including our community in discussions that can ultimately and greatly affect them. We have community members that are on edge. I've been contacted by that school does not just affect Park Forest, it affects University Park as well. And we're putting out that we're having conversations about this, and this has not been an official discussion with the school board. We're an official discussion with our lawyers, and we don't know the exact format of doing that, or even if it's possible. I think that we're going back to the issues we had last year with our community. I understand the superintendent had a meeting with the Blueberry Park for us. I also read that there were numbers being drawn up. I think that was very premature. And it should have just been brought to the Board of Education, basically telling what the conversation was about. When we start trying to put numbers together, what are we telling the people? What are we telling the board? What are we telling the community? I think, again, that we need to be very cautious in these conversations, and I want to go on record as saying I am not one of those board members that said I support it. Like I said, I've heard it. It's been talked about. And basically, it's going to be and is a very sensitive subject, and we need to learn from the last time and handle these types of situations accordingly.
I'm sorry, could you kind of recap some of that? We have a hard time hearing at this end.
She was referencing some conversation that's been out in the larger communities about the leadership at Park Forest, the mayor. There's been talk about doing some consolidation on some of their schools, and there's some interest in Talala. So there's been conversation out there. I alerted the board of this conversation. We haven't had any further discussion on it here. I was just alerting you to what was taking place out in those communities, because it will come to our door eventually.
So what's been provided to date is just information.
It was information only. And at some point, we will have to have the discussion here.
But the point is, it is not this board that's driving the discussion.
Correct.
So what I said was, it's rumors that there's board members on our board that have said they support it. My thing is, the board has not discussed this. This is not presented to the board as a serious thing to consider. We don't even know the process behind something like that. And I said that we need to learn from the last time and know that whenever we make a major decision, if we even consider it, this affects our communities. And this is not just Park Forest that's being affected. So I'm cautioning the board to handle this the right way. If someone's coming and proposing something, I don't believe numbers should have been drawn up. I believe that should have come to the Board of Education and we should have been informed on this. We don't know the process. We don't know if it's even something that can be done. Park Forest is a part of Will County. Does that take Will County approval? We don't know all of that. So I'm just cautioning the board on the conversation around it and how we handle it.
I think it's pretty serious to say something like there are board members that support it, because I'm not sure where a statement like that is coming from, since we really haven't talked about this.
That's why I said we have to be careful, because it's out there that they have support on each board that's affected. That's what's being said. So when it was brought to me, I said, I am not a board member that has said that. I don't know of any board member that has said that. But I'm going to always make sure you guys know what I'm hearing.
Right, so we want to
That's fine,
dispel
but-
those rumors, because that is not true. So we want to make it clear that,
I think it's good to know what you're hearing, but please don't, the way in which you phrased it, Dr. Hall, sounds somewhat accusatory, and I don't think that was your intention.
No, if it's accusatory, that's not what I'm saying. If you listen to what I said, I'm saying let's be cautious in this because of what has happened previously. And I'm saying to the board, let's just know these rumors are out there, but let's make basically a plan to handle this, learning from the last time.
Yep.
Because it is a controversial issue.
Okay, I think caution is warranted and appreciate your concern. Is there any other new business items? If not, can I have a motion to adjourn?
moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? We are adjourned.
So,